Christina Hoff Sommers is an American feminist philosopher. She is a renowned expert in gender studies who has lectured extensively in colleges and universities all over the world. She is also the author of several books that have become bestsellers. In her books and articles, she has exposed the dark side of feminism, and some of her ideas are so shocking that most people ignore them. But you can't afford to ignore these truths about feminism because they may be hiding in plain sight. For liberal feminists, equality is not the goal. It is merely a means to an end. The goal of liberal feminism is not the equality of the sexes, but the sameness of the sexes. Most people think that the ultimate goal of feminism is for women to be more like men, but this is not what most feminists want. Many people believe that feminism teaches women to hate motherhood, but this is not true. You may think that a woman cannot be both a feminist and a traditional wife, because feminism is supposed to be about rejecting traditional gender roles, and a traditional wife is supposed to embody those roles. But Christina Hoff Sommers argues that this is not necessarily the case, because what feminism is really about is freedom of choice. A woman can choose to define herself in any way she wants to, even if that definition includes being a traditional wife. In fact, Christina Hoff Sommers argues that many women choose to be traditional wives because they want the freedom to pursue their own goals and ambitions without having to worry about the demands of a career. These women choose to define themselves as wives because this is what allows them the most freedom to pursue their own interests. Most feminists do not hate motherhood. In fact, most feminists celebrate motherhood as a source of great joy and fulfillment. Many people think that feminism is a queer movement, but this is not true. Most feminists are straight women who value their femininity and their sexuality. Yes, there are lesbian feminists, just like there are straight feminists, just like there are lesbian conservatives and straight conservatives. Sexuality and political views are two different things. In fact, Christina Hoff Sommers argues that the reason why there are so many lesbians in the feminist movement is not because feminism makes women gay, but because gay women are naturally drawn to a movement that celebrates female empowerment. This is why most feminists are straight women who value their femininity and their sexuality, but who also recognize that their sexuality does not define their political beliefs. But what many feminists have a problem with is how motherhood is typically experienced by women in our society. You see, motherhood is great when it is freely chosen by a woman who feels fully supported by her partner, her community, and her workplace. But motherhood becomes unbearable when a woman feels burdened by the expectations that she must be a good mother, a good wife, a good employee, and a good person all at the same time, when she is expected to give up her career to have children, when she is financially dependent on her husband, when she does not have access to quality and affordable childcare, when she is judged by others for making a choice not to have children. This is the kind of motherhood that many feminists reject, not motherhood per se, but the social conditions that make motherhood so difficult for many women. Most feminists do not want to be more like men. They want to be more like themselves. This is why Christina Hoff Sommers points out that the language of feminism is not masculine. It is feminine. Consider the language used by second-wave feminists. It was a language of feelings and emotions. Words like oppression, discrimination, exploitation, powerlessness, and trauma were used to describe the female experience. In contrast, the language used by men's rights activists is a language of justice and objectivity. Words like rights, equality, and discrimination are used to describe the male experience. Second-wave feminists did not want to be more like men. They wanted to express themselves in a way that was true to their lived experiences as women. Liberal feminism does not seek equal access to opportunities for women. It seeks the sameness of opportunities for women. To put it bluntly, the aim of liberal feminism is not for women to be able to do everything that men can do, but for women to be able to do the same things as men. This is why a liberal feminist might argue that female cops should wear the same uniforms as male cops, regardless of whether this makes sense for law enforcement. Or why a liberal feminist might argue that women should be allowed to serve in combat, regardless of whether this makes sense for national defense. For a liberal feminist, it doesn't matter if women are better at anything than men, or if men are better at anything than women. What matters is that they do the same things as each other. So in today's video, we will be looking at 8 things you didn't know about feminism according to Christina Hoff Sommers. Let's dive right in. You might think that a woman could not be both a feminist and a housewife, because the former is supposed to be about pursuing a career outside the home, while the latter is about staying home to take care of the family. But Christina Hoff Sommers argues that this is not necessarily the case. A woman can be both a feminist and a housewife, because what feminism is really about is freedom of choice. A feminist is simply a woman who chooses to define herself in ways previously reserved for men. So a woman can choose to define herself as a full-time mother and a homemaker, and still be a feminist as long as she defines her role in these terms. In fact, Christina Hoff Sommers argues that second-wave feminists were mostly middle-class, women without domestic help who could afford to stay home and raise their children. Because of this, they advocated for women to have access to birth control so that they could choose to be child-free or child-thin. If they had been poor and had no other option but to work outside the home, they likely would have advocated for affordable childcare. But since they could afford not to work, they chose to advocate for women's liberation from domesticity rather than for the support and infrastructure that would make it possible for other women to do the same. No. 1. Women don't hate men. Most people think that feminism teaches women to hate men, but this is not true. According to Christina Hoff Sommers, most women don't hate men. Many people believe that modern feminism is a branch of Marxism, which claims that everything in society is determined by material conditions and that gender inequality is just another form of class inequality. But this is not true. Most feminists are not Marxists. In fact, many feminists reject Marxism entirely. Most feminists today are liberals who believe in the power of government to effect social change. But there is a wide range of political views among feminists, and it would be wrong to paint all of them with the same brush. Some feminists are conservatives, some are Christians, some are Marxists, and some are liberals. There are even some feminists who hold values that contradict each other, like black feminists who simultaneously affirm both feminism and traditional gender roles. So if you want to understand feminism, you need to look at the diversity of thought within the movement, not just its most radical elements. There is no such thing as a woman who hates all men. It is not possible. Even the most radical feminists do not hate all men. They may hate some men, but to say that they hate all men is just to say that they hate men more than they love their own children, their parents, themselves, or any other human being. This is just absurd. What most people consider to be feminist hatred of men is actually something else. It is often disappointment in a particular man, anger at a particular man, or even grief over a bad experience with a particular man. But to call this feminist hatred of men is just to confuse what women feel with what feminism teaches. Number 2, most feminists are not Marxists. Number 3, liberal feminism is not about equality. We tend to assume that feminism is about equality between men and women, but this is not what liberal feminism is about. Number 4, a woman can be both a feminist and a housewife. Number 5, most feminists do not want to be like men. Number 6, most feminists don't hate motherhood. Number 7, a woman can be both a feminist and a traditional wife. Number 8, most feminists are not lesbians.